My husband forgot to mute his mic mid-tournament, so 200 players heard his affair with my brother's ex. I joined my husband's game to hear a surprise party, and caught him cheating live on a hot mic. He thought he was muted during a tournament, so I let 200 people hear his secret before I destroyed everything. I was staring at my second monitor, a half smile on my face as I listened to my husband's Call of Duty squad secretly plan my surprise 30th birthday, when his voice dropped to a guttural, intimate whisper. He wasn't talking to his teammates anymore. He was talking to his mistress on speakerphone, completely oblivious that his physical mute button was mechanically jammed and currently broadcasting every single dirty detail to a live server. The house at 214 Hawthorn Crest in Silverton was supposed to be our sanctuary, the final destination after 4 years of grinding through terrible apartments and budget-stretching mortgages. We bought it because of the extra bedroom at the end of the hall. I wanted a library. Mark wanted a gaming den. In the spirit of compromise, I let him have the room, watching with affectionate amusement as he spent a small fortune outfitting it. He lined the walls with charcoal-colored soundproofing foam, installed blackout curtains, and built a custom desk specifically designed to hold his pride and joy, a $3,000 custom-loop liquid-cooled gaming PC. It was a massive, panoramic glass monolith filled with neon RGB lighting and high-end silicon. To complete the setup, he dropped $400 on a top-of-the-line, noise-canceling headset. For years, Friday night in our household was universally recognized as squad night. At exactly 7 o'clock, Mark would kiss my forehead, take his plate of dinner down the hall, and lock himself in his illuminated cave. His squad was a tight-knit brotherhood. It consisted of Mark, my younger brother Leo, and 3 of their best friends from high school. They took their games incredibly seriously, competing in local tournaments and ladder matches. I never minded the noise or the isolation. In fact, I loved hearing the muffled shouts of victory vibrating through the drywall. It meant my husband was happy, and it kept my brother out of trouble. Leo and Mark had a bond that went far beyond mere in-laws. Mark was the older brother Leo never had. When our father passed away shortly after our wedding, Mark was the one who taught Leo how to tie a Windsor knot for the funeral. But their bond truly solidified 6 months ago. Leo had been engaged to a woman named Chloe. To call Chloe a nightmare would be an insult to bad dreams. She was manipulative, deeply narcissistic, and had a cruel streak that she disguised as just being brutally honest. After stringing Leo along for 3 years, she brutally dumped him via a 2-line text message while he was in the middle of a 12-hour shift at the hospital. She packed up her things, took the dog Leo had paid for, and vanished. Leo was completely shattered. He spent the next 3 weeks sleeping on our living room couch, staring blankly at the ceiling. Mark was his rock. Mark would sit up with him until 3 in the morning, drinking cheap beer in the dark, fiercely telling Leo that Chloe was toxic garbage, a bullet dodged, and that he deserved infinitely better. Mark even bought Leo a custom Xbox controller just to coax him back onto the squad and get his mind off the heartbreak. Last Friday started like any other squad night, but there was a hidden layer of excitement buzzing beneath the surface. I was sitting cross-legged on the living room sofa, my laptop balanced on my knees, a mug of peppermint tea warming my hands. Leo, who happens to be a software engineer, had meticulously set up a hidden, password-protected subchannel on their local Discord server. He had quietly sent me the invite link that afternoon, granting me lurker privileges. The entire squad was secretly plotting a surprise getaway for my upcoming 30th birthday, and Leo wanted me to hear the ridiculous, heartwarming banter as they debated whether I would prefer a rustic cabin in the mountains or a beachside resort. I was invisible in the voice channel, simply soaking in the affection of these 5 men whispering about how to make my milestone birthday perfect. They dropped into a high-stakes search and destroy match in Call of Duty. Tensions were instantly high. In this specific game mode, you only get 1 life per round. If you die, you are forced to spectate in total silence until the next round begins. The match came down to a brutal 1 versus 3 clutch situation. Mark's digital avatar was the last man standing, hiding in a dark corner of the map, his heartbeat sensor pinging rhythmically. The rest of the squad was dead, which meant the voice channel was locked in a tense, breathless silence, waiting to see if Mark could pull off a miracle. Right in the middle of this agonizing silence, Mark's phone vibrated violently against the hard mahogany surface of his desk. The aggressive buzz bled clearly through his microphone. I watched his green avatar ring flash on my second monitor as he cursed under his breath. I heard the distinct, heavy click of the the physical mute switch on the side of his boom mic being flipped upward. He thought he was in the clear. He thought the wall of silence protecting him was absolute. But a recent, widely documented firmware update for his specific headset, combined with a sticky mechanical switch that had accumulated dust over the years, created a fatal hardware glitch. The physical switch clicked, but the software override failed. The green ring around his avatar on my screen didn't disappear. It stayed illuminated. He was hot. He was live. And he was completely unfiltered. I heard the rustle of clothing as he leaned back in his expensive ergonomic chair. I heard the digital chime of him accepting the call and putting it on speakerphone so he could keep his hands on his mouse and keyboard. "Hey, baby," Mark murmured. My fingers instantly locked up, hovering inches above the warm keys of my laptop. It wasn't my voice on the other end of that phone. The Discord voice channel, already quiet because of the game, went into a state of stunned digital paralysis. You could have heard a single pin drop across 5 different households. Then came a woman's voice. It was tinny, compressed through the speakerphone, but undeniably clear. "Are we still on for next weekend? I need you." Mark chuckled. It was a deep, relaxed, incredibly intimate sound, the exact sound I thought he reserved exclusively for Sunday mornings in our bed. "Yeah, Kate thinks I'm working through next weekend to catch up on the Silverton account." She completely bought it. I felt the heat rising in my neck, a sudden, violent flush that prickled my skin, and my vision went blurry with rage. My chest constricted so tightly I couldn't draw oxygen into my lungs. The Silverton account. For the past 3 weeks, he had been complaining about the massive workload the Silverton account was dumping on him. I had been making him hot lunches, massaging his shoulders, and tiptoeing around the house so he wouldn't be stressed. "Good," the woman replied, her tone dripping with satisfaction. "Because I was looking at the prices for the hotel, and it's steep. Are you sure you can swing it?" "Don't worry about the money," Mark said dismissively, the sound of his mouse clicking rapidly in the background. "I've already moved the emergency fund into my private Revolut card. Book the Vineyard Suite in Napa. Yeah, the one with the outdoor tub. And don't worry about buying drinks when we get there. I'm bringing that 2012 Cabernet she's been saving for our anniversary." A sickening cold washed over the burning rage. The emergency fund, $18,000. Money we had painstakingly saved over 3 years, sacrificing vacations, eating cheap meals, and driving cars with failing transmissions, all to ensure we had a safety net for a future child. He had secretly drained it. He had funneled our future into a hidden digital bank account to fund a luxury affair. And the wine. My late father had bought me that specific bottle of 2012 Cabernet the day I graduated college, telling me to open it only on a day of pure, unadulterated celebration. Mark was going to pop the cork for his mistress. That's when the real bombshell dropped. The woman on the speakerphone laughed. It was a sharp, breathy laugh with a weird, distinctive nasal pitch right at the very end. The blood in my veins turned to absolute ice. My stomach plummeted through the floorboards. I knew that laugh. I had heard it echoing through my kitchen at family dinners for 3 straight years. I had heard it ringing across the table at Thanksgiving. "I can't wait," Chloe purred through the phone, the audio picking up the unmistakable sound of her pouring a drink. "Especially since Leo keeps texting me to ask for his favorite wool sweater back. He's begging me to unblock him just for a piece of clothing. It's so pathetic." Mark scoffed, an ugly, dismissive sound that made my skin crawl. "Let the kid cry. He was never man enough for you anyway. You're mine now. He wasn't just cheating on me. My husband, the man I shared a bed with, the man who had held my weeping brother in the dark and told him he was going to be okay, was sleeping with his brother-in-law's recent ex-fiancée. He was actively sleeping with the woman who had mercilessly destroyed my brother's life, laughing about his pain while actively dismantling our marriage behind a soundproof door." On the Discord server, the silence finally broke. From Leo's channel, I heard a sharp, ragged, terrifying intake of breath. The pure, unadulterated gamer rage that these men usually reserved for server lag, screen cheaters, and aimbots instantly shifted into something infinitely darker and terrifyingly quiet. Leo didn't scream. He didn't unmute his microphone to confront Mark. He didn't bang on his desk. I watched Leo's mouse cursor logic play out in real time through the server activity log. Leo didn't just clip the audio using his NVIDIA Shadowplay recording software. He bypassed the private subchannel entirely. With a few rapid, deliberate clicks, Leo dragged the administrative permissions, highlighted Mark's active audio feed, and hit the stream to server button. He didn't just broadcast it to the 5 members of the squad. He pushed the live feed to their entire local gaming community, a sprawling, active server of 200 people from our surrounding county. The chat log on the right side of my second monitor instantly transformed into a blur of chaotic motion. It became a waterfall of exclamation points, all caps text, and sheer disgust. "Bro, WTF is this? Is that Mark? Did he just say Chloe? Bro Leo the first, I'm so sorry. Get this trash off the server right now. I sat in the living room, surrounded by the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft glow of the lamps. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't storm down the hallway and bang my fists against his heavily reinforced, soundproofed door. A strange, clinical numbness washed over me, replacing the panic with a cold, sociopathic clarity. I had a job to do. I calmly minimized Discord and opened up the Asus Armory Crate motherboard utility application on my laptop. Months ago, Mark had excitedly synced his PC's internal telemetry to our local network so I could monitor his rig's temperature from the living room when he ran intensive, overnight video renders. He wanted me to be able to shut it down remotely if the water cooling pump ever failed. He had given me the master administrative password. I typed it in. The dashboard bloomed on my screen, displaying the intricate, real-time vital signs of his beloved $3,000 machine. The CPU temperature was sitting at a comfortable 45 degrees Celsius. I navigated to the BIOS override panel. I checked the box to manually disable the thermal throttling safeties, the built-in emergency protocols designed to shut the computer down if it got too hot. A red warning box flashed on my screen, begging me to confirm the action. I clicked accept. Then, I moved my cursor down to the core voltage slider. I clicked on the digital dial and dragged it all the way to the maximum absolute limit. I pushed 1.7 volts of raw, unfiltered electrical current directly into a processor that was only designed to handle a fraction of that power. On my screen, the telemetry dashboard violently spiked. The numbers flashed red. 75 degrees, 99 degrees, 115 degrees. Then, the entire application froze, the local connection violently severed as the motherboard literally cooked itself from the inside out. I closed my laptop. I stood up. I walked down the long, hardwood floor of the hallway. Every single step I took felt like a rhythmic, heavy drumbeat echoing in the silent house. I walked past the framed photos of our wedding on the wall. I walked past the decorative mirror where he would adjust his tie every morning and kiss my cheek. I reached the utility closet at the very back of the house, right next to the laundry room. I opened the gray metal panel of the fuse box. I took a deep, jagged breath, tasting a bitter, metallic copper tang in the back of my mouth. I gripped the heavy, grooved plastic of the master breaker switch that controlled the entire back half of the house. I yanked it down with all the force I possessed. A heavy, definitive thud resonated through the walls. The soft, ambient hum of the central air conditioning instantly died. The hallway was plunged into shadows. And behind the closed door of Mark's office, the neon carnival of RGB lighting that had been glowing fiercely beneath the doorframe was extinguished in a fraction of a second, leaving nothing but absolute, suffocating darkness. I turned the knob to his office. It was pitch black inside, smelling faintly of ozone and burning plastic from the fried processor. I could hear Mark cursing in the dark, the heavy rustle of him standing up from his chair. I didn't say a word. I simply stepped into the room, reached behind his desk, gripped the thick power cable of his massive, heavy glass rig, and aggressively ripped it from the wall. I wrapped my arms around the heavy metal chassis. It weighed at least 50 pounds, the sharp metal corners biting brutally into my forearms, but the adrenaline surging through my veins was a hell of a drug. I hoisted it off the desk and walked backward out into the hallway. A moment later, a heavy thud echoed as Mark bumped into his desk. He stumbled out of the office and into the dark hallway, his expensive noise-canceling headset still dangling loosely around his neck. The glowing screen of his cell phone illuminated his confused, deeply irritated face in a harsh white light. "Kate, did you blow a fuse? The router just died in the middle of a clutch," he complained, waving the phone around like a flashlight. Then he stopped. The beam of his phone illuminated the scene in the hallway. He saw me standing there in the deep shadows. I wasn't holding my phone. I wasn't weeping into my hands. I was holding his entire digital life suspended against my chest. "Kate, what the hell are you doing?" he hissed, stepping forward with his hands raised in a placating, nervous gesture, his eyes darting frantically between my face and the heavy glass case in my arms. "Put the rig down, you're going to drop it." I looked him dead in the eye, my voice eerily steady, devoid of any warmth or recognizable humanity. "I hope the Vineyard Suite has good Wi-Fi, Mark, because I just overvolted your CPU to 200 degrees right before I pulled the plug. The motherboard is slag. It's a brick now." His jaw dropped, the color instantly draining from his illuminated face as the realization of my words slammed into his chest. "Wait, Kate, it's not what it sounds like. I was just what, Mark?" I interrupted, my voice slicing through the dark hallway like a razor blade. "Just discussing the vintage of my 2012 Cabernet with a telemarketer, just helping Chloe fold Leo's sweater? He froze, his mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish, utterly incapable of formulating a lie big enough to cover the crater he had just stepped into. I opened my arms and let the massive PC slide from my grip. It hit the solid oak hardwood floor with a deafening, catastrophic, glass-shattering crunch. The thick tempered glass exploded outward in a wave of jagged shrapnel. The heavy metal water-cooling loop snapped, spraying neon green coolant across the floorboards. The graphics card violently snapped off the motherboard, the metal heat sinks bending out of shape. Just like our marriage, I whispered into the ringing silence. "Are you insane?" she screamed. "Wait, no." He screamed. Mark screamed, a high-pitched sound of pure, materialistic agony. "Are you out of your mind?" He dropped to his knees right there in the hallway, completely ignoring me as he frantically clawed at the shattered tempered glass, desperately trying to inspect the smoking, irreversibly fried ruins of his most prized possession. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was already turning on my heel, walking briskly past his kneeling form, heading straight toward the front door of the house. "Look outside, Mark," I called out over my shoulder, my hand resting heavily on the brass deadbolt. He scrambled to his feet, wincing as a piece of glass sliced the bottom of his bare foot. He limped rapidly down the hallway, shoving the front door open and stumbling out onto the front porch. The cool night air rushed in, illuminated by the harsh, yellow glow of the streetlights, scattered indiscriminately across the damp, dew-covered grass of our front lawn, were his clothes. His expensive tailored suits, his favorite gaming hoodies, his slacks, his collection of running shoes. It was everything I had managed to rip out of his closet and hurl out the bedroom window in the frantic 5 minutes before I shut down his life. He stood there on the porch, shivering in the cold night air, his shoulders slumped as he stared at his designer shirts soaking up the mud. I leaned casually against the doorframe, watching him process the absolute devastation of his reality. But there was one final string to cut. The real sting. "By the way," I projected, my voice loud enough to cut sharply through the quiet suburban night. "I already called the Vineyard in Napa. Since you were stupid enough to use my elite wine club membership profile to secure the 20% discount, I had full administrative authority over the booking. I didn't cancel the reservation, Mark." He turned slowly to look at me, his eyes wide, terrified pools of regret. "I transferred it to Leo," I said, offering him a slow, merciless smile. "He's taking his new girlfriend. They're really looking forward to the outdoor tub." Mark stared at me, his jaw completely slacked, the sheer, crushing magnitude of what he had lost finally breaking through his arrogant facade. In the span of a single 10-minute window, he was instantly blocked by his entire squad. He was permanently banned and publicly humiliated in front of his 200-person gaming community. His $3,000 rig was a pile of useless, dripping glass and burnt silicon. The emergency fund was going to be frozen the second I called my lawyer in the morning. And his wife was currently pulling the heavy oak door shut, turning the brass deadbolt with a loud, definitive click right in his face. I am currently sitting cross-legged on the living room sofa at 214 Hawthorn Crest. The power to the front half of the house is working perfectly. I've got a crystal glass of that beautiful, perfectly aged 2012 Cabernet in my hand, listening to the muffled sound of Mark desperately pounding his fists against the front door, begging me to let him in. I take a slow, deep sip, savoring the rich notes of dark cherry and oak. I am enjoying this expensive wine with a much, much better class of people, myself. Am I the monster here for completely nuking his digital and physical world to the ground without a second thought? Or did he get exactly what he deserved for letting his hot mic burn down our lives?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.